Welcome to Extracurricular. I am your co-host, Eddie Geller.
And I am your other co-host, Stephanie Vanos. And do I hold a position? Yes, I do. I am a school board member for Orange County Public Schools, but I am here unofficially, as I am every time I am on the podcast.
But I think more importantly, you're a mom.
I am a mom. That is true, and it is more important.
You're a mother of daughters.
I'm a mother of 3 daughters
who
are starting school next week.
Which one's your favorite?
You don't ask that question, and I don't answer that question. They are all not equal because they are unique.
Sure.
So they are all 3 unique individuals who I love very, very much.
I'm going to send them this clip, and I'm going to let them decipher from your body language which one is the favorite. So that'll be interesting for them. Thank you, as always, for listening to this podcast. I just want to say it means a lot to us that people listen, that they check us out, they subscribe, they share things. Really appreciate it. Do you have anything you want to say to our listeners?
I appreciate it too. And it's been fun actually, because I have run into a couple of people and, you know, we have these interviews and we have these discussions about, I think, things people might want to learn about, but then I'll run into someone and she'll be like, you know what? I totally agree with what you said about Target, you know, and I have to say this, we were actually back at Target this week and you were recognized by your voice.
Well, someone did recognize my voice, but they recognize you as a human, a full human being, Stephanie Vanos. And they're like, oh my gosh, is that your podcast co-host? I recognize his voice. And I'm like, yes, I am the other guy from Stephanie Vanos and Guy, the podcast.
So you got recognized for your voice at Target.
It was very nice. By the way, speaking of Target, we're going to get to talking about our guest, who is wonderful. We're going to get there in a second. Someone had brought up Target to you because on a previous episode, you had been frustrated because your red card, is that correct? Am I getting the parlance?
Red card, it's very common knowledge.
Okay, I'm sure it is. It gives you a discount on things. Didn't work. You were very upset about it. We went back and the red card, what happened?
Well, so once again, I had to go in the self-checkout line, which immediately makes me angry. And I got in line, but we only had one thing, so it was no big deal. Got it? Okay. Well, then I go to pay with the red card, and guess what happens?
Didn't work.
Doesn't work. So I politely ask this time it was a man working, gentlemen, can you come over? Can you help me? I'm having trouble using this. So he actually goes and tries in about 3 different stations to see if the red card will work. It does not.
He was persistent.
And he was also, I feel like, a little upset that it wasn't working.
Well, I think he wanted the best. He wanted the best for you.
But in the end, I discover that he had a little scanner thingy that he could do that would basically take the 5% off.
And but you were actually more angry.
Because it meant that the person last time didn't bother to do that. And that made me very disappointed.
Is there any way to not get you angry at a Target?
Well, I don't go very often.
Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you for listening to our podcast. That's not me ending it. That's please asking you, if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe, rate us, and share this podcast. That's like one of the wonderful ways that people get to learn about this podcast. If you enjoy it, if you think this is informational, if you think my jokes are funny, if you think Stephanie's jokes are funny and maybe that she has something important to say, send this podcast or let them know, hey, I listened to this good podcast called Extracurricular. You should check it out.
Agree. And also, you talked about sending emails, and we did receive an email.
Well, we've received more than one email, but we received one email that I thought I wanted to bring up. Not that like this whole intro is just going to be bringing back extracurricular lore, but we have one of our favorite listeners, John. John, you know who you are. Thank you for being a listener. Who wrote in because a few weeks back we had been to this party, and at this party they had brought 3 trays of different catered food. It was meatballs, baked ziti, and a lasagna. And so you and I were having a discussion, what would be your 3 trays if you were hosting a party? You said something about a salad or a slaw, and I flew into a rage, candidly. I blacked out. I don't think I remember what happened. And
I'm so mad about salads.
Well, I just don't. I love salad, but it does not go in a tray. A salad goes in a bowl. Like the tray is, okay, we get it. We get it. We don't need to rehash it. So we asked our listeners, we said, what would you put in your 3 trays? And so John answered back. He said, food tray 1, taco options like chicken, carne asada, carnitas. Tray 2, enchilada options like bean and cheese, ground beef, pulled chicken. Tray 3, churros. So Steph can't say she's never tried them. What do you think of those 3 tray options?
I mean, I like it. So are those like just the 3 trays, taco options in one, enchilada options, another churro option in the third?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh no. Okay, so it's each one is a separate. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Are you even on this podcast?
Wait, should we start over?
I mean, no, we cannot start over.
I'm so mad.
You know, that's number one rule of this podcast is that we cannot start over.
Okay, now that I understand the question,
Oh my God,
I'm going to go with food tray 1 because I love a make your own taco.
Yeah, no.
Now sometimes it'll be a bowl, sometimes it won't be a taco. It might be a taco bowl.
That's fine. No one's saying you can't have a taco bowl.
But I do appreciate that, and I do appreciate the concern that John had about my not having churros. However, in between the time we recorded that and now, I have had a churro.
You have had a churro, and you very much enjoyed it. I am being.
Can we talk about churros more though? They're so good.
We can. Our next episode is going to be 100% dedicated to churros.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know who we're going to have as a guest, but we will find a churro expert. I want to talk about our guest for today, who is a dear friend of both of ours, Scott Hottenstein. Tell us about Scott.
Scott?
He is still here as we're recording this, so be careful what you say.
Okay. He's sitting right behind me.
He is literally right behind you.
No, I met Scott in the public education advocacy world a couple of years ago. And I mean, wow, we just, together just learned so much about public education, so much about the state. We really... I always say that when you are volunteering or you're doing something you care about, like find the joy in it, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you are not finding the joy in what you're doing, it's just not worth it, honestly. And so we just had so much fun just advocating and visiting different counties in the state and trying to understand what was going on and meeting new people and being up in Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. And so I was so happy to have him on the podcast today. And when I decided to run for school board, he was the first person to say, not without me, I'm going to be your campaign manager. So he was also my campaign manager now, and now has gone on to just bring on so many other young people into the campaign process and help other candidates. And so it was just a really good conversation. We touched on a lot of different things today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're someone who is curious about how public education works, how it's funded, of course, we're always talking about why public education is so important and talking about taxpayer funded vouchers. This is such a great deep dive into that stuff, into why is this like this and how does this work? I think we really get into some of those nuts and bolts and how it matters to candidates and why we need to be talking about public education in races and how it's a winning issue. So I thought there were just so many interesting things and such a fun dynamic to have Scott, for whom, we both have a lot of love. And Scott actually introduced us, though I don't think either of us remember exactly when that happened, but it did happen at some point.
Yeah. So it was a great conversation. And without further ado,
let's get to Scott.
Let's do it. I am so excited to have our guest on this week, my good friend, Scott Hottenstein. We were fellow public education advocates, and we traveled a lot together. We traversed the state. We visited so many counties. We talked to so many school board members and candidates and public education advocates, and spent some time up in Tallahassee and DC. And then when I decided I was going to run for office, you were the first one right there saying, not without me, I'm going to be your campaign manager. So I am so excited to have you on today. So welcome, Scott.
I'm excited to be here.
I also want to just say that I know and like Scott a lot. So that's on recorded record.
Well, I'd also like it to be on record that I'm the guy who introduced the two of you.
That is very true. That is true. Though we can't...
All for call time.
All for call
like
time.
Anything for call time.
Anything for call time. I feel like that is a recurring thing that gets brought up on this podcast is Stephanie's lack of call time. But that's out of my own jealousy. We don't need to re-explore that.
Wow. Anyway, Scott.
Just cruising right by that. We'll clip that for our respective therapists.
Well, so you obviously have so much experience in public education, from your time as a teacher and then as an advocate. Why? And I know as an advocate, it's a word for basically working for free. It's a volunteer job. And actually, you pay to do it. It's not just you're not making money, you actually pay to do it. Why do you care so much about public education?
That's a great question. And like, I'd have to go back to how I was brought up and go into the Naval Academy. And without reciting it, like one of the first things you learn as a plebe at the Naval Academy is that you're here for public service, and your life is built, whether you're in the Navy or after the Navy, to obtain the highest levels of government and leadership in the community. And public education is a bedrock of our democracy. So just like I was protecting democracy in one way as a naval officer, I feel that public education is another bedrock, and I'm contributing to democracy and this great country that we live in by being a teacher and a public education advocate.
That is a really good answer.
I love it.
I love it.
I already smell a clip for.
That is really, really good. And I think that's true. I think sometimes, we'll dive into funding and taxpayer funded vouchers and all this, but it's like, why do we care? What is the vision, and why are we fighting so hard for it?
It's the values, but so you guys know this, the people listening don't. I just came from a Orlando Pride event where they had a fireside chat with Haley Carter and the commissioner of the NWSL. And one thing that the Orlando Pride did, we were at the match last night. They had two players on the bench for the first time in years. One of them had cancer, and the team stuck by her through the cancer treatments and until she's ready to play again. The other person had blown out, I think, an Achilles in one foot, and then the other, so that wiped out 2 seasons. But the team stuck with them, and they're back on the field. And I got to introduce myself to Haley and say thank you. Like, this is what we should be doing. And she made the point, talking to me and then in the fireside chat, that it's about how we treat each other, and it's about the relationships. Mm-hmm. So a lot of, bedrock of democracy, public education, that's kind of the value that kind of drives me. But the sustaining day-to-day stuff are the relationships that I've had with students, with fellow educators, with fellow advocates. And I know that I've gotten more out of the relationships than I've put in. Meeting some of and teaching some of my students has made me a better parent, a better teacher, a better person. So there's a value involved, bedrock of democracy, but it's the relationships with the people that really sustain you as you go through.
I love that. One of the things I did want to talk about, because we talked for a moment about your Teacher of the Year nomination, but what makes a Teacher of the Year? Like, what about the way that you came to that job, you came to that classroom, made other people recognize that in you? And no need to be humble. We don't need humility on this podcast. I mean, I think people are curious. What makes a Teacher of the Year nominee?
Well, especially because you were very new. I mean, how many years had you been teaching when you were nominated?
5.
I mean, that's
wow.
That's not a lot.
Talk to me about that relationship you had with your students. Like, how, because you don't come off as, I'm trying to be Mr. Cool, which you're plenty cool, but like, you're not trying to be like, use all their lingo and just whatever. Like, you, I feel like, command authority, but you also, you show a lot of respect and you're very kind. I don't know. I'm curious about that relationship with your students, that they would want you so much, that they would want to support you so much.
Well, that's the thing. And I would tell my students this, and it applies equally, I think, in politics. But when I was in the Navy, and maybe I'm biased, but I think sailors are just better than soldiers or airmen or Coast Guardsmen or Marines. Like, that's friendly, inter-service rivalry. But what I would always say about sailors is that they could smell bullshit a mile away.
Yeah.
And as a leader, if you're up in front of them not being authentic and trying to get one over on them, they smell that, they sense that, they don't follow that. You go into a middle school classroom, any classroom, those kids smell bullshit a mile away.
Yeah.
And they know when teachers are there going through the motions, or they're doing something that they don't want to do, or you know, it's curriculum that they didn't develop and the teacher's not excited about it. And you know, if the teacher's not excited about what they're teaching, how do you expect the students to if the teacher's not connected to it? And it's the same thing in politics with the voters. Like, the best politicians are the authentic ones who come to the voters in a very authentic way and listen. You got to listen in the classroom. You got to listen in leadership in the Navy, and then make the best decision that you feel is in the best interest of everyone involved. And if you do that, it's simple. You're going to win elections. You're going to get students excited about learning. You're going to be able to lead sailors in the Navy.
I love that. And it's so funny to hear that through line through, like, I mean, you articulated it, but also conversations we've been having about candidates and winning votes and winning elections. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, we could keep talking about this forever, but I'm going to slowly move it back to public education because, you know, and I know we could talk about this segment for hours and hours. So I'm just going to do the listeners a favor and say, if you could change one thing about public education right now to make it better, one aspect, what would it be?
Hands down, it's public education funding. Like, that is the root of, you know, money is the root of all evil. Lack of money is the evil that we have in Florida public education today. I think Pink Floyd made a song about it. Like, it's money. And earlier today, Stephanie and I were on the prep call for the luncheon that we're going to do. And I came prepared with all the numbers. I don't know if we want to get into them, but the Florida is, depending what stats, how you want to rank it, anywhere between 45th and 50th in investment in public education today. And you know, you can't expect filet mignon education when you're giving it a Burger King budget.
Yeah.
And everything else flows out of funding.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something I talked about a lot on the campaign too, was like, you talk about smaller class sizes, funding. You talk about relationships with students, that's funding for people. I mean, it truly, everything, services for our students with special needs, funding. I mean, it really, truly all comes back to making sure the people who are there are paid well and there's enough, you know, support, there's enough, you know, it really comes back down to money.
Mental health.
Right.
Money. Make the buses run on time. Money.
Yep. School culture. I mean, it is related to having enough funding in schools. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
APIB classes, funding.
Yeah.
So there's no getting around it.
Why do you think Florida as a state is so low? You know, 45th to 50th in terms of whether you look at teacher salaries, per pupil funding, I mean, just overall. Do you think why do you think that is? Do you think it's been a strategy? Do you think it's been an accident? Do you think people don't care? Why do you think that's happened? We didn't practice any of these questions. These are like philosophical questions on funding.
but I want to go back to kind of, you know, I talk about public education is a bedrock of democracy, and it's the relationships, and how you get good at it is relationships. That's how you win votes. There's a whole nother way of winning votes, and that's to divide everyone and then win just enough to stay in power. So all the culture war stuff, all the rhetoric, all the gerrymandering, all the social media, all of that serves to divide us. And dividing us can actually be easier and more effective than a long-term investing in people and in relationships. to win, especially if your win isn't protecting democracy and ensuring our economy for future generations, but it's to maintain your political power. And so I think that some people have turned, and you see this with the military, you see this in politics, you see it in public education, especially as technology has gotten more and more advanced. You could use technology to treat any kind of segment of society as an ATM. So a large part of military funding isn't really to defend our country, it's to pay defense contractors. A lot of the money you spend in politics isn't necessarily to reach voters, but it's to pay political consultants or to, pay people, to make a political ad or yard signs that can be cynical. And in public education, once you realize that, hey, we could invent something like taxpayer-funded vouchers, or we could invent charter schools or corrupt charter schools. It used to be charter schools were like union-supported laboratories of innovation that teachers really had a say in. Now it's just real estate deals and a way to extract money from public education dollars. And if, as a side result, our students aren't getting the critical thinking skills or the people skills to prepare them for the jobs they need to run our economy in the future, then that might make it easier to divide them for political gain in the future.
Well, I know you're such an expert, and I know there's so many data points that you can share. So I'm almost just want to turn over to you and say, what is the budget can be really confusing, and understanding how public education is funded can be very confusing. If you could sort of like give people 3 points, like I just want you to understand these 3 things, and it might help you make sense of where we are and what has happened. What would those, let's say, like 2 or 3 things be? Or if you don't like that question, you can answer the question you wish I'd asked, which I also am a fan of doing.
No.
Wait,
Okay.
have you ever not exactly answered a question you were asked?
I'm just saying, sometimes I feel like there could have been a better question. And I will answer that question.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I would give you that advice if I was your campaign manager, which I am not, was not, and will not be.
And my campaign manager did give me that advice.
Fact 1. Sometimes it's hard to envision what $4 billion in the state of Florida means, especially when there's 3.2 million students in Florida. So that is $1,250 per student. So in preparation, our luncheons for the League of Women Voters are always in Winter Park. So I went to OCPS, looked at the enrollment of Winter Park High School. And last instance, they had about 3,200 students. That's over $4 million, because you would take those 3,200 students, give each one $1,250 more dollars. That's over $4 million that could be used at Winter Park High School.
Wow.
That's more APs, that's more mental health counselors, academic counselors, smaller class sizes, aides for students with individual education plans. That's more sports teams, more coaches, after school programs, $4 million per year. And then multiply that at every high school, not just in Orange County, but across the state. So that's one fact. You're probably losing millions of dollars at your local neighborhood school because of vouchers. I'll give you another fact about vouchers.
Taxpayer-funded vouchers,
Correct.
as I'm told.
Yes.
Yes.
Not scholarships.
Not scholarships.
There are 3,575 private schools in Florida. This data is on the Florida Department of Education website. 2,525, which is about 71%, they take taxpayer-funded vouchers. Of those, 70%, 69.5% are unaccredited by anybody anywhere.
Wow.
Goodness gracious.
So this is taxpayer money is going to these unaccredited schools.
Yes. So no qualifications for teachers, no academic curriculum verification. We toured one of these taxpayer-funded voucher schools.
We did.
Like the high schoolers weren't around.
No one knew where they were.
All the specials as they were, the sports, the art teacher were canceled because like one of the teachers had to go to college. Literally, that was the reason why they didn't have whatever.
And they were smaller class sizes, but that was because grades 1, 2, and 3 were together, and
Yes.
there were still only 7 or 8 students.
Yeah. So that's a second fact that
Sorry to interrupt. Who are the parents sending not to disparage any parents, but like if you're a parent, why would you send your kid to one of these like shitty schools?
Actually, that's a really good question, and I think it's a really good point to say that when I talk about taxpayer-funded vouchers, I can only speak for myself. I don't know if the word is blame, shame, any parent for choosing. I personally do not blame any parent for choosing a taxpayer to take advantage of the taxpayer-funded voucher system because it's there, and I understand why they would take it. What I have an issue with is the program as a whole, right? Is that the fact that we even have this out here, the fact that we are diverting billions of dollars away from our public schools to a taxpayer-funded voucher program. So I just want to say that I, on an individual level, you're going to take what you think is best. And for some parents, and honestly, I think a lot at the school, the kids wore uniforms. And like that was their selling point. They wore uniforms.
I was going to mention that.
Wow.
And parents sometimes think, oh, it's a school that they have the private school look, so it must be like the private school I have in my mind. And I know, Scott, when we were testifying against HB1 back in 2023, you actually talked a lot about the private school that parents maybe had in mind that they were sending their child to and the reality of what the taxpayer-funded voucher would actually pay for.
Right. Like when it comes to taxpayer-funded vouchers, school choice, that's choice for the private schools, not for the parents. You can't take a $9,000 voucher and go to Lake Highland or Trinity Prep and get in, because even if they took it, and I'm not sure if they do, it wouldn't cover the cost. And then if it did cover the cost, they don't have to admit you. It's a private school. So there is no choice. You dream of Lake Highland or Trinity Prep, and what you get is a strip mall school where your art and PE teacher leaves to go to college, and then the kids don't have any electives. Or there's 20 kids in a room, but it's K through 3. Yeah. And it's one teacher, and who knows what happens when they're sick.
Right.
And
then,
but they have uniforms.
Right.
And the other thing, other statistic, 56.9% of taxpayer-funded voucher schools are religious. 32% explicitly say that we're doing this to make money. They're for profit. So in all of Florida, 2,525 schools that take taxpayer-funded vouchers. There are only 70, which is 2.8%. 70 schools which take vouchers, are nonprofit, non-religious, and accredited.
Amazing.
In Orange County, the number out of 208 taxpayer-funded schools, taxpayer-funded voucher schools, there's one that's nonprofit, non-religious, accredited.
Wow. And, I think those statistics are so alarming. And to go back to your point, Eddie, the schools, we were talking about this today as well, the schools, they don't really have to share much information with parents. And so that's another reason. Parents don't really know because schools don't have to share their curriculum. They don't have to share their teacher certificate. They don't have to share the services that they're providing. So a lot of times parents don't know. They're not really sure what questions to ask. They think, well, maybe I like that they have uniforms. It seems like a nice school. Maybe I want my child to have a religious education. And again, I get it. Like, you want your kid to have a religious education? I get it. That makes sense to me. Just don't fund it with taxpayer money.
Mm-hmm. And then, not that I'm a fan of testing, but the grades are just whatever the school gives. So Johnny goes from being a DF student to a taxpayer-funded voucher school, and now he's a straight A student, and he wears a uniform. So it must be working until Johnny can't read, and then maybe this is a sub-point. I still want to reserve number 3. But one of the things we heard time and time again in the Florida legislature is that the money should follow the student. Well, that's bullshit, because Florida hasn't released, and this is way in the weeds, the fourth calculation of the 2024-2025 Florida Education Funding Plan, because they've lost students who collected vouchers but actually ended up in public schools, because when parents find out that Johnny can't read, even though he's been wearing a uniform and getting Bible class and getting straight A's, they put him back in public education, but the money doesn't follow. Right. Interestingly enough.
Right.
And there's no accountability, no transparency.
And then I think from just, my own experience of being in especially some of our elementary schools, our public schools, is when the students do come back, a lot of the teachers find they are behind.
Yeah.
They're way behind academically because of the time they were gone. And so then the teachers have to kind of bring them up to speed, bring them up to grade level. And then that's public school's job, because we take all children that come to our door. But that takes time, and that takes resources that are being simultaneously siphoned away from public school. Yeah.
Also, I just want to know if this is happening in 2025. It might not be Johnny. It might be Noah, Liam, Oliver, Elijah, or Mateo. So those are the most popular names in 2020. I want to just keep us,
Thank you
it's important we keep us honest.
Those names sound like a winning soccer team, actually.
I do like Oliver.
No, those are all, I really like all those names.
Yeah.
People are like, what does Eddie do on the podcast? He Googles most popular names while they're having a substantive discussion about public education.
But were those the most popular names 10 years ago?
Oh, that's such a... I thought about that.
Because you have to...
No, I thought about that.
Yeah, you have to smooth the data.
Right. Yeah.
So third point...
Okay.
...is people think they're paying too much for public education, but they're not. So, and we... this is a whole nother conversation about your constitutional authority in the Florida Constitution to set millage rates, to set property tax rates in order to pay for a quality, efficient, safe, secure public education, has been taken away by a statute. And so the state tells Orange County how much they could collect in taxes. And in the last 15 years, your taxes, your millage rate has been cut 40% as inflation has been going up and as growth has come to the county. And there's all sorts of things, rollback rate, save our homes. We won't get into that. But imagine trying to run a business where you're going to say, I'm going to cut my revenue as a percentage of the market by 40%, but am still expected to do just as good, if not better, as I did 15 years ago. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
And if you look at tax records, which I did.
Here's where it gets fun, listeners. We're going to look at some tax records.
There's someone's house. I won't identify which one. Like the actual amount, not in inflation adjusted dollars, but you actually have paid less for public education as the years have gone through and the inflation has grown and more kids are going into the schools. You have paid less. Now they say because there's more property, but with the more property comes more students and more everything. You should keep the millage rate consistent, and then that's the money that you could plan public education on.
And did we go over what the millage rate was? Like what that means for folks?
We did not.
So the millage rate is kind of, think of it, how much we're going to charge you per $1,000 of your assessed home value. So without going all the way into it, the required local effort is 3.2 mils. So if you have a $100,000 home, you're going to pay $300 for public education. 15 years ago, the required local effort was 5.425 mils.
Yeah, and I think the example they give that our CFO gave last week was something like if the median home value in Orange County was something like $355,000 and the property tax that you pay that would go to public school is something like $2,100 or something like that. So I think it's always kind of funny when people say, well, I pay property taxes. I should be able to use my property tax to go to a taxpayer-funded voucher school. And it's like, well, no, you're using your property tax plus your neighbor's property tax and another neighbor's property tax and everyone on the street in order to send, one or two or three kids to a taxpayer-funded voucher school. So it is... I don't think people understand exactly how really little you actually, OCPS relies on property taxes for funding, but any individual really does not pay that much into the schools.
No, and we're cutting it.
Right.
Instead of don't want to raise millage, just leave it alone.
Right. Why do you think they do that? Why don't they let the property tax kind of accumulate as property values increase? And they meaning the state, because that's who makes that decision.
It makes a great talking point to divide us at election time. Like, what politician doesn't want to say, I cut your taxes? Instead of, I kept your taxes steady and gave you a world-class education program. And I think a lot of that is actually nearsighted, because if you look at education tax referendums all around the state of Florida, and even some non-education tax referendums, I think 95% of the time, I could think of one case, Hillsborough, where they voted down millage for public education. They brought it back 2 years later and it passed. But everywhere else, with decisive margins, even in red counties, people vote to tax themselves for public education. Public education is a winning issue. 80% of us send our kids to the neighborhood public school. 85, if you include charters, are in public school. 85%. Let's take care of the majority of people. Let's honor school choice. 80% go to traditional public schools. Let's honor that choice and let's fund that choice.
Yeah. And also, as I like to say, public school parents like public school choices.
Yeah.
So let's expand the choices within the public school system.
Yeah.
So I want to bring some threads together, and you were just touching on it, is, we talked about the importance of public education, both your experience in the education system and this 30,000-foot view. We're critically underfunding schools. It's getting worse. These taxpayer-funded voucher schools, most of them are a scam, a sham, a grift. And now you work, you have been working on campaigns. Now this is your gig. Let's talk about, to your point, how education is important for candidates to be talking about. What do candidates need to be saying these days? What is the message on public education that that voters need to hear from candidates?
Public education today is our economy tomorrow. We developed that, we used that, we marketed that with all the candidates that we helped in the 22-24 cycle, and hey, it worked. In the 24 cycle, we helped, nudged, we weren't the primary factors behind this, but we helped nudge and give early money to a pro-public education school board candidate in Sarasota County who defeated the Moms for Liberty wingman on the board. We gave money to incumbent school board member, gay man, who would endure horrific abuse at school board meetings. He won in Sarasota. another school board candidate in Broward defeated a DeSantis appointee 2-1. And so, like I said, it's a winning issue. 80% support public education. And even if you polled the 20% who might be in charters or private schools, they support public education. I know on Stephanie's campaign, you had huge amounts of support from parents and even students who volunteered who are in some of these schools we're talking about. Private schools, Lake Highlands, Trinity Preps, because they know that, I'm 54. In 10 years, 15 years, when I need a nurse, that nurse is in a Orange County classroom right now.
Yeah.
When you get frustrated that the person taking your money at Starbucks can't make change, they're probably in OCPS right now. So everyone gets how public schools benefit everyone, whether you have kids, your kids are grown like mine, you don't have kids yet, you're retired snowbird, like.
Oh, and even if you've made a different choice for your own children.
Right.
Doesn't mean that you still don't care about public education.
Public education is backbone of our democracy, of our community. So, candidates need to understand that. They need to message on that. And they need to find, Stephanie would say in her stump speech that, no matter where I go, what doors I knocked, no one ever has brought to me like, hey, this book is too woke, but my kid doesn't have an algebra teacher.
Yeah.
And she would say, no matter what divides us, we all want the same thing for our kids. We want them to receive an education. We want them to be seen in the classroom. And that's true. And that's why she won 68-32. It's authentic, it's relationship, and it benefits all of us. And candidates just need to message on it. It's just not sexy enough.
I love it. Well said.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were manager of Stephanie's campaign. Well, I'll just start with one question. We don't have to go that long on this, but talk to me about Stephanie, the candidate, versus Stephanie now on the school board. What did you see from that candidate? And I mean, obviously I'm setting up for a certain type of answer, but I want to hear it from you because you know her so well.
I mean, it's the same person, right? Like, you want to be prepared.
I do.
I was going to say over prepared, but
that's all right. Well, look, we're allowed to be, self-aware on this podcast.
She always wants to be prepared. She wants to have the facts and figures and talk to everyone and get opinions. And like Stephanie as the candidate would, never fail to piss me off by getting someone else's opinion than mine. And dedicated, and no one works harder. No one worked harder as a candidate, call time notwithstanding. and I don't think anyone works harder as a school board member. So, and again, relationships, authenticity, that's what connects. She didn't win 68-32 because she was faking it as a candidate. She is who she said she is.
I completely agree. Do you have anything to add to that,
No,
Steph?
I don't want to talk about it. No, let's move on to the next topic. No, but I will say you were an amazing campaign manager, and thank you for putting up with me. It was a lot, I know, and it's over preparing was not your favorite. Me getting opinions from many other people was not your favorite. Me needing to take my preparing time before having to go out and talk to big groups was not your favorite, but did not prevent me from doing any of them. But truly just the patience and dedication and just love that you just gave me as, my campaign manager and just encouragement and support was so appreciated.
And I just want to say for a sec, when I ran for office, because that's how you and I met, Scott, I was this young buck of 36, 37 running for Congress. And I met Scott, and Scott was just like, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Let me introduce you. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. You got to talk to this person. I mean, as a new candidate who did not know pretty much anyone, so I have some notes on that for former campaign Eddie, but you figuratively, maybe occasionally literally took my hand and helped me out as a candidate and made me feel like, you talk about this, you belong here, and you can win this thing, meant so much to me. And I'm so grateful for you for that. And it makes sense that you were such a kick-ass campaign manager, and that Stephanie won, and that all these people want to work with you, because that's what you bring to the table. And I'm sure that's why you were the second in line teacher of the year, presumably in Florida. So thank you for coming on the pod, and thank you for talking with us.
I got to circle back.
Okay.
Because I know Stephanie's like, I don't want to talk about it, but to your point, and then going back to Stephanie, like, it's all about relationships, right? Like, why wouldn't you introduce people around? Well, a lot
of people want to hold that stuff in.
Exactly.
Right.
And we see way too much of that in politics. We see way too much of that in Democratic politics. And sometimes we could be very good at circling the wagons and then shooting inside the circle. But the other thing, and what makes me, I think, effective as a campaign manager, but really ineffective as a small business owner, is to me, I can't have a client, I can't take on a candidate who I don't care about and who I don't honestly believe is the best person for the job. And I'm sure that's going to cost me clients, and that's going to cost me money. But it's hard when you see, and having been a candidate twice myself, you've been once, like, the sacrifices that candidates make in order to serve the public are immense. It's tough on your mental, your physical health. It's tough on the family. It's tough on your friendships. You lose friendships sometimes. I'm just talking for myself.
No, same.
Just either because you have a letter next to your name, or you don't have a letter next to your name, or you did X when someone wanted you to do Y. And I think we need to have a better structure of how we support candidates, especially if we're talking about female candidates who have kids, and like being part of that and keeping that the human side in your mind, I think makes you a better campaign manager. You'll have better clients and have better results, but you probably won't make money. And then not just the candidates, but all of the young people, and maybe some not so young, who are out there supporting candidates. Like, are we paying them?
Yeah.
And right now with Civic Elevation Consulting, we had really good experiences with 2 UCF interns on Stephanie's campaign. And I actually hired one of them while I was at SOE. Like, hi, Marbury, if you're out there. And so I have taken on, I don't know how many, a dozen interns. And I want to treat them well. Yeah, I want to pay them at least a stipend. 4 of them I've hired on a part-time basis, and I'm paying them. And I'm not charging my clients all that much. So right now, I'm not making any money. Any money that's coming in is going out to the kids who are working. But they're learning. They're in a fun environment, looking out not just for the candidates, but for their futures so that they understand. Because, I would tell my civics students this, like 7th graders, like, why are you here? Like, you commanded things, you're in combat zones, now you're in our classroom. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of people my age have, I'd never say fucked, have screwed things up for people your age. Yeah. So I'm here to give you the tools to unscrew them.
Yeah.
And the 7th graders, like, that would win them over. Like, oh, but so are we taking care of our campaign workers? Are we building the bench there? Way too often, people who are campaign managers and volunteers, they get so turned off in the process that they're gone, and they don't come back and they don't help the next cycle and the next candidate, or they don't move up from being a volunteer to being, a field director and then a campaign manager. And that's people, that's money, but with Stephanie's campaign, it was really easy to fuse all that because we had this great working relationship and we had a great friendship going in. And another friend of ours, Christine Bermucci, who I still work with, she's like, not all the candidates you work with are going to be Stephanie's. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
It was we had a great team though.
Yeah. And I still work with everyone on Team Stephanie is now like, it's some part of Team Civic Elevation. Because I had great relationships with Stephanie and her team, and that's continuing today. And I think Orange County and the students in it are going to benefit because we're going to elect some pro-public education candidates.
I love that so much, your just commitment to the young people that help on campaigns and or serve in some way, because you are right. It is hard kind of when you make that transition from campaign and then it's over. And then what do you do? Well, you just spent, the last how many months. And it doesn't always translate, right? Like we know working on a campaign, running for office, doesn't always translate to another job necessarily. And so finding places that those, especially young people, can continue to grow and develop their expertise so that, they can be the best, the best people working right alongside candidates. Like not everyone can be the person on the ballot, but man, that person on the ballot needs so much support behind them. And so I love that you're doing that.
So all the donors out there listening, like we need to not just donate to candidates, but donate to the organizations to give them room to keep these good people around.
Well, thank you again for joining us. The future is bright for the next Noahs and Liams and Olivers. And
what about
Olivias.
The girls?
I was getting there.
Hello.
Hello, Olivias and Amelias and Sophias and Emmas. They're going to be all right.
They're going to be okay.
All right.
When we have people like Scott out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
It's been fun.
All right.